What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of I Came with Fire podcast. Tonight, we are here with somebody special. We've got Luis Espindola. If you guys have checked us out for some time, you know that we have a specific sponsor, Redefine Violence, Sheep's Clothing LLC. Well, this is the gentleman behind that. But Luis is a United States Marine Corps veteran and is also running for Congress. But I want to let him go ahead and introduce himself. Luis, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be here. I'm Luis Espindola. I do own Redefine Violence, and I've kind of kept my face out of that as far as business wise. The business model we had for that early on was let's make it about everyone else and the violent arts that they train in versus hey, look at me. I
Right.
got that framework from studying a bunch of other brands and a bunch of other companies that kind of came on the scene, within the last few
hmm
years, and a lot of it was the same person over and over. So we wanted to do a
Right.
little something different. You know what I mean? Where am I supposed to look? Can I look at the camera or?
Dude, look right at the camera.
All right,
Look
cool,
right at
cool.
this beautiful face right
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
You'll be good to go. But okay.
Anyways, yeah. So from there, I am running for the U.S. House of Representatives here in Texas, the 27th district. So that's first time doing anything like this, man, and it's been a wild ride so far. So I'm having a
Dude,
blast.
this is a daunting task, I'm sure. And I've talked to a few other people who've gotten into politics who are, I'm not sure how old you are, but like I'm an older millennial.
Right.
And one of the other guys I know I'm talking about, he's an older millennial as well. And getting into politics and just talking about getting to see behind the curtain and Oz, so to speak, and just how kind of screwed up everything is, and how like getting a small taste of that political BS. Like, have you experienced any of that so far? Like, what the bureaucracy is like?
Yeah, absolutely. Even within the own Republican Party, I mean, there are.
hmm
I'll keep the generalities there. There's different
Sure.
factions. There's different factions regionally, and this district is huge. It encompasses 14 different counties in Texas. And for
hmm
anybody who knows anything about Texas, one county can damn near be its own state. So
For
it's
sure.
a lot of ground to cover. And within that, there's the dynamics of the district are so different. You got from the coastal bend down here all the way to oil and gas and farming. You've got so many different industries in one district. But to answer your question, yeah, the dynamics within politics have been interesting. As a newcomer, you kind of experience it a little bit more. I've been asked what my previous affiliation to the party has been, and I'm
Mm.
upfront, like, hey, I've had no previous affiliation with the Republican Party, but I just gave a little speech on it last night. I see that as kind of a strength because there are so
hmm
many people that have political apathy and voter apathy that don't really think that their vote matters or that anything that they do
hmm
matters. But I'm learning firsthand that, oh crap, the only reason people feel like that is because they don't understand that if they do get involved, if they were to get involved, they can actually sway an election, especially in a congressional race or a district race for a
mm
state representative or local judges and things like that. It's it's just one of those things. Like I said, you don't really experience it and get the chance to tell everybody else, to the left and right of you, hey, it really does matter until you start to get
hmm
involved. So, yeah.
Yeah. I can definitely relate with some of that apathy, like you said, because here in California, um, I can only vote by mail. And I don't find that to be very trustworthy. I don't like that I'm sending something in my mailbox. The postal carrier has to pick it up and somebody somewhere else is looking at it. I would much rather go to a booth and do something. Right.
That's
And
crazy.
so
Is that how long has that been
since
like that
since
for you guys?
2020, since
Mm,
2020. Yeah.
we'll keep
And
it that.
I'm
We'll keep it at that since 2020. Yeah.
exactly. I gotta,
Yeah.
we gotta use specific jargon, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not from California. I'm originally from Florida, just out here because the Air Force stuck me out here.
Right.
So, but I don't agree with it. I don't like voting by mail. My wife and I both feel the same way that it just leaves a lot open for somebody to do something. But I don't think there's. I think in general, there's not a lot of trust in our political system anyway. So it seems natural.
Yeah, the trust in the political system is one of the reasons that I'm running.
Hmm.
I want to focus on something that I've come up with. I don't know if it's an original term, so someone on the internet
Hmm.
correct me if it's not original. Lateral legislation within Congress. So
Hmm.
I haven't really seen anybody go to Congress and look left and right and say, "Hey, how do we govern ourselves better? How do we give
Hmm.
the American people a better product, especially if there are no term limits?"
Hmm.
The more you talk about term limits within the political apparatus, you get kind of like the cold shoulder and kind of like the, oh man, this guy's all about term limits. He's crazy. But when you talk
Right.
about term limits to regular everyday people, they're all for it. So it just kind of shows you, the different dynamics and the different thought processes. But the trust in the political system, everybody thinks Congress is corrupt, man.
Hmm.
It just is the way it is. And I don't care
Yeah.
if I get backlash for it. The American people don't trust those who govern us. So why not
Hmm.
send someone up there, send a couple of us, there's 435 members of the House, send fucking 5 or 6, that just want to
Hmm.
say, hey, we should come up with rules and regulations to govern ourselves better and to make sure that we don't lose touch with the districts that we represent throughout the entire country, not just Texas.
Hmm. I think that should be kind of a standard. I mean, there's sort of a precedent for it. The system that the Romans had is definitely not the same as what we have in the United States, but you had the plebes and you had the patricians, right?
Right.
These people that were represented by of the lower class of people, and then the upper class of people, and the lower class still had a voice. And you can argue whether or not that was sort of like um, not much of a voice at all, if any, but just kind of there. But there should be the common man like you, me. It shouldn't be unprecedented in the United States now for you to step in and say, "This is my government. You guys work for me. I'm coming in because now I want to make some changes because we're not happy with the way things are going." And that seems to be, to me, from the impression I've gotten of your platform, is what you want. I mean, you stated, you're not like one of them kind of thing, and that's a refreshing take. I think a lot of us are looking for.
Yeah, that's literally the campaign slogan or one of the tags on
Hmm.
that we use is not one of them, because I don't know. I just don't see myself represented, and I'm not talking about the beard or long
Hmm.
hair or sleeve tattoos, which I'm told to cover up all the time. But it's just truth and truthful identity, or excuse me, that's the word that I'm looking for. Genuine, genuine
Hmm.
identity there in Congress, and there's a couple, sprinkled for sure. I don't want to bag on all 435 of them. There's got to be a few of them that are good and decent, but for the most part,
Yeah.
man, I don't think that they truly are the voice of the districts that they represent, and that's
Hmm.
something that I talk about as I go throughout. Say, hey, if I'm not the person you vote for, if I don't earn your vote, that's okay, but make sure that you pay attention to who you're voting for and make sure that their voice matches your voice. I heard I think it was your partner or you that mentioned something the other day that a politician
Hmm.
should be viewed at like a bus route.
Yes,
And
Zach likes to make that analogy.
yeah, and I'd like to repeat it now, and I'll give him all the credit. A politician should be viewed like a bus route. You're rarely going to get a politician that takes you to the exact place that you want to go, right? But to vote for somebody that's going to take you to the complete opposite side of where you need to go out of spite is absolutely insane. So
Hmm.
when I heard that on your guys' show, dude, I fell in love with that, and I used it
Yeah.
once. I credited you guys because that's a great way of looking at things.
Dude, it is a really good analogy, and I actually hadn't heard it until Zach said it to me. But everyone has that, like what you said. They think it's a great way to describe how you should look at it, and
Right.
I really like when he says it. So, dude, you take off and run with it, man. Use it all you want, because it's a really good way to think about it. And if you were trying to explain voting to like a group of sixth graders, I feel like it's at that level too, to where a lot of people can understand it. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So. Yeah. So obviously, like, how you view our current system is one of the inspirations for why you wanted to run. But what are some other things that kind of inspired you to say, you know what, this I'm actually going to do this. I'm not just going to talk about it.
Well, part of it was the current representative, and I won't dog on him or anything specifically as a person, but
Sure.
after 6 years, in office, I started to ask myself, well, when is a good time to ask these politicians, hey, this service start to turn into a career, and it's
Mm-hmm.
really his fault that I'm running, because I told myself, okay, if he doesn't run for another term, then that means that he's kind of got the same mindset and, term limits and passing the torch or democracy, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm hesitant to use that because it's a constitutional republic. I know that, everybody, but um, yeah. So
I know what you mean.
yeah, exactly. So taking a look at that and realizing that people are corrupted when they're there,
Mm-hmm.
whether they want to be or not. Something has to keep them there, or something's
Mm-hmm.
driving them to stay there. I kind of call it the leather chair theory. They get up there and they start to feel that leather chair, and they ask their assistant. They're like, "Hey, how much does this job pay again?" And the assistant tells them, "Well, sir, it's $174,000 a year." So the congressperson sits back and says, "Okay, cool. So what do I have to do to stay here?" They said, "Well,
Mm-hmm.
you have to fall in line." Okay. All right. I'll do that, And then that's just my opinion of what happens. That's my theory of what goes on up there, and it becomes a cushy job, and service no longer plays a part. It's now about
Mm-hmm.
yourself.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, it's
yeah.
not. I don't think you're far off when you consider some of these career politicians, like you're talking about, and how much money they've made in their seat, and it's evident that they're not making it just because of their salary. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think as people get comfortable, and you spent time in the military, just like me. And how many times have you seen people that maybe hop? I'm not sure what your MOS was in the Marine Corps, but maybe they hop from like one back office position to another, and they do everything they can to avoid like going out and, like, for me as military police, going back out and working the road or whatever, right?
Yeah.
They do everything they can to avoid that. So I feel like it's one of those things where human beings get real comfortable with that leather chair, like you said,
Yeah.
and the office, and they do a lot to stay out of there, especially when there's that monetary incentive. But locally, what are some of the things that, like, you hope that if you were to be elected, that you could do to improve and kind of steer out from there?
Well, so what I think we struggle with in this district is the relationship with the current incumbent, with the current representative. As I drive
Mm-hmm.
around, the few people that do know who he is, or have worked with him, they they really don't have much to say other than he's a nice guy. You know,
Okay.
there's really no direct involvement in almost any industry at, I'll say, the middle management and lower levels. I've driven to plenty of police departments. We have a lot of small police departments in this area, and try to introduce myself and talk to
Mm-hmm.
them, but they've really never talked to the guy or have had his office reach out. So for me, it'd be something where I wouldn't participate in something called dialing for dollars. You get to Congress,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's no secret they spent half their time doing the job and the other half the time worrying for reelection. So
Mm-hmm.
just not even worrying about reelection. To me, I don't think that one term can be as effective, but I'm willing to do it for one term just to show that the job can be done for a short amount of time and then pass it on.
Mm-hmm.
To
Yeah.
combat that, I will say it's asinine to me that people tell me, well, it really takes you about 2 years to get a hold of everything and to really kind of learn the job. Whether my next statement is naive or not, I think it's absolutely ridiculous that a job that pays $174,000 a year gives you a 2-year buffer to learn the job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are plenty of jobs within the country that don't pay anywhere near that. And
Mm-hmm.
regardless of their position or what they do, they don't have a 2-year term to figure that out, to figure out their
No.
lives. I know guys on rigs, you could be a green hat, you can be wherever, you better learn that job pretty freaking quick.
Right.
So that is the other side where I keep hearing it, but it's only from political people that tell me, well, it's kind of naive what you're saying, because it's going to take you about 2 years to make friends and to grease the wheels and to learn how to do everything. And then after that, your second term, you start to get your stride and you start to get put on committees and all that stuff. And if that's
Mm-hmm.
true, if that is the way that it works, we all know that it shouldn't be the way it works. It's
No.
it's freaking crazy.
It's just this. bureaucratic behemoth that you're talking about, to me, it almost seems like something that is said so often and publicly to make people like us who are voting for them to think, yeah, that's the norm and that's the truth. It's just all bullshit, right? To give me that buffer. Like, I can't think of a job where, they're like, okay, you got 2 years to learn this, and then, like normally there's like, hey, bro, yeah, depending on the job, you got a couple weeks to really get the ropes if it's super technical or whatever. But after that, it's like, you need to get out of here if you haven't picked it up by now.
Yeah.
So, and I get it. Political office is definitely a lot more complex than certain jobs for sure. But it just seems like an excuse to keep the ball rolling and stay there. Um,
Yeah, it's
I do
definitely
like
one
what
of
you
the
said. Like
excuses
you,
that they use.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I do like the statement you said about you don't care if it's just one term. Um, are you trying to like set an example, so to speak, like lead from the front that this is how it could be, that we can still get things done? I can get out, let somebody else have a shot at doing this that represents all of us, that kind of thing.
Yeah. That's kind of the approach that I'm taking here, where it's more so of, instead of spending 18 months governing and the last 6 months
Hmm.
worrying about reelection, I mean, what can you get
Yeah.
accomplished with if you use the entirety of the 24 months? Maybe a lot,
Hmm.
maybe a little, but I want to bracket this thing. We're so far where people are doing 30 freaking years. What if it's possible
Hmm.
just to show people that you can hold? The whole thing is about power. So if you can
Hmm.
show humanity and show our fellow countrymen that you can hold on to power for a short amount of time and pass it, I think that's a lot
Hmm.
bigger of a statement, a lot more powerful statement than worrying about how much of an impact you as an individual can have. And I do have people all
Right.
the time that come up to me. People are going to come or, email me and bash this, saying this guy's naive. He doesn't know what he's talking about. They're missing the bigger picture, where right now we're experiencing the politicians are unable to literally let go of power. They have to
Hmm.
hold on to it. They have to diamond hands this thing. You know what I mean? They're trying
Hmm.
to clutch
Right.
onto it as much as possible. And they don't have that simple ability to ask themselves, hey, I wonder if within my district, wherever they are in their country, there's somebody that can do the job better than me, or
Hmm.
somebody who's got a different idea, or somebody's got better ideas. And I think that's missing
Hmm.
from humanity in general, where we can't look to our neighbors and think, man, like, shit, hey, if you can do it better than me, go on ahead. I gave it my all. I did the job for X amount of
Hmm.
years. This is everything that I
Hmm.
had. Hell, go on and take it farther. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Is this something that you look at where when you're talking about term limits before, do you feel like there's benefit and maybe doing like capping it at like 2 consecutive terms, so just to give somebody the benefit of having the continuity that's
Yeah.
in place with leadership, right? And then maybe like capping it there, or like how do you view that?
So the exact term limits, I'd probably go anywhere between 6 to 8 years for term limits myself. If I had a
Hmm.
magic wand to be able to wave it, I think that would give sufficient time for whoever's trying to get something accomplished. I mean, 6 years is a long time, man. 6 years is a long
It
time.
is.
You go
Yeah.
through a regime change. You go through a presidential election during that point in time, and you should be able to accomplish something. And if you can't, then the problems within Congress are a lot deeper than
Hmm.
are led on. Actually, I shouldn't
Yeah.
even say that. I think the problems are as bad as we think that they are. So
Probably.
to answer your question, yeah, man, anywhere 6 to 8 years, I think that gives one human being enough time to come up with some ideas, express them, learn, and push forward. Versus your shelf life on being creative and on being effective and on being uncorruptible, starts to
Hmm.
expire after a few years. There's just no
Yeah.
way that a person can remain true to themselves and true to their constituents and ultimately true to the country with
Hmm.
staying in an environment like that. You know what I mean? For that
Yeah.
long. And that's not even a secret. It's not even a secret. We see
Mm-mm.
it. We see it. People are there 10, 12 years, millionaires, man, absolute millionaires.
Dude,
And it's
it's
just,
crazy.
we're just letting it happen.
Hmm. I've always wondered, and maybe I don't know if you've seen this or anybody's like explained it to you, but when you take over for somebody, political office, like what you're hoping to do, what is the changeover like as far as like handing you the keys to things, is it some sort of productive process, or is it like a cold shoulder, like I'll be out of here in a week and you can bring your shit in kind of thing? You know what I mean?
So this is complete speculation, and I got to be honest about that. I don't know
Okay.
what the process is. I'm assuming
Mm-hmm.
that if you beat an incumbent or you beat the person
Mm-hmm.
that's there is it's a cold shoulder situation, which I did a
Mm-hmm.
video early on. I knew that it wasn't going to work, but I figured I'd do it anyway,
Mm-hmm.
where I talk about the transition of power. And
Mm-hmm.
I call out the incumbent and I say, "Hey, you and I have the opportunity to start the incremental change that we're looking for, within our elections. If you were to say to yourself, okay, I've done enough. It's time to choose a successor. Put your power behind me, put your knowledge behind me, and actually do a transition of power, a proper transition of power, then I can
Mm-hmm.
be a much more effective representative, and you will have left your mark by starting something that we need as a country, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of my philosophy behind of it. Might be a little naive. There's going to be people that watch this and think that's absolutely insane. But what we have worked for a while, but it's starting
Mm-hmm.
to show that greed takes over. It's starting to show that, man, I mean, I don't know where your religious spectrum is, but if we're sinners, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things where you can't tell me that man's sin doesn't take over in an environment like DC, and
Yeah.
they that excuse me, that they don't succumb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
your political shelf life, it seems to get pretty shorter and shorter. And it's like that quote, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Right.
And you money in your face all the time, special interests, people hoping trying to get you to lobby for stuff. I feel like just all of us as people are infallible, and to pretend like we're not, obviously there's people that are going to resist that and maybe they can walk away from it, so to speak. But it becomes harder and harder. I feel like the more that that's thrown in your face to not fall in line. It's almost like a failsafe too. What you're proposing, it's not even like just a genuine thing to say I'm going to step down now that my time is over. I think it's almost acknowledging the inevitable that there corruption will enter that space. The longer you're there, the longer a collective of people are there, and it's almost like like I said, a human like fail safe. Like, okay, well, now we need to get people out of there so that this doesn't transpire. Start getting these political zombies that are running for money and all this stuff all the time. And it's
Yeah.
kind of how I view it. What you said,
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think our framers realized that we were going to have technologies later on that were going to allow people to be president at 70, whatever Biden is, all that old. So,
Yeah,
um,
mm,
yeah, man, absolutely. It
yeah,
is a failsafe. I like the way you said that. I am reminded of a quote. I like to give proper credit. I don't know who the hell said this or where I heard this, but it
mm-hmm,
said, I'm sure they all went to Washington with good intentions. And that's true.
mm,
I don't think that people just run just to be evil and that they want to go be a part of Congress to be an evil human being. They probably all did, or most of them did go to Congress, did go to Washington with good intentions. But
mm-hmm.
there are forces that tear that down. That's at least that's my
Yeah.
belief.
No, I agree with you. It's like best laid plans, right? That phrase.
Yeah.
Um, I think the system. I mean, this is nothing shocking, right? But people know it's broken there, and
Hmm.
it's going to take a lot of people with your mindset, I think, to get fed up and go in there and try to change house. I don't know how that's going to happen. It seems like a
Yeah.
very long, arduous process, especially with everything going on. But what are some things that like you specifically champion to or trying to champion in hopes of bringing change about or policy wise?
Policy wise, like I said, I focus on that the lateral legislation. If maybe you saw my
Hmm.
video where it's doing pretty good on TikTok, the
Hmm.
Money Where Your Mouth Is Act. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's
Right.
just a piece of legislation that would require every member of the House and the Senate to spend 20 hours throughout their term embedded with Border Patrol at the or at the southern border and the northern border, and embedded with law
Hmm.
enforcement agencies within their district. Now that would start with just those two things, but it would expand
Hmm.
into other areas like teaching and first responders, simply to make sure that these representatives stay in touch with their district and stay in touch with the
Mm-hmm.
things that they make laws on, especially when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
law enforcement or the way they open their mouths and run their mouths on separate issues, everywhere from teaching, healthcare, all kinds of stuff. I just think that it would give them a better perspective, and it would force them to keep their eye on the ball and why they're actually there. Like I said, there's
Mm-hmm.
no rule on how long they can stay, and there are no term limits. So why isn't there a rule that keeps them grounded? Why isn't there a law that keeps them grounded that's punishable by either a penalty or some sort of report card, where every election
Mm-hmm.
or every year they're graded on, hey, this person only did 5 of his 20 hours with
Mm-hmm.
teachers, and he only did
Yeah.
7 of his 20 hours with local law enforcement within their district. So
Right.
that way they're
Right.
answerable to the people whenever they do go and look them in the eye and say, hey, I've been doing a really good job. I'm still one of you. I still want to keep working for you. Now you get to pull that up and that record up and say, well, you haven't had time to do this. You haven't had time to stick around. You haven't had time to visit us. You haven't had time to do all these things, yet you
Mm-hmm.
still claim to be one of us. And that's where the phrase not one of them comes from.
Mm-hmm.
There's us, the people that experience the dynamic changes that happen within our own districts as they happen, and then there's them. I don't necessarily know that it's 100% their fault, because the job does require you to go to Washington and spend a lot of time there, but that should be something
Mm-hmm.
that they're able to recognize within themselves and say, damn, I've been gone a lot. How much do I
Mm-hmm.
actually freaking know about my district?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
And secondhand stuff it only gets you so far. You can have
Yeah.
representatives, you can have staff, but if you're not there to witness it, then like you said, your political shelf life just it ends up expiring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're both veterans here, right? How many
Yeah.
times do you sit there as an E4 complain about like it was the last time I saw my leadership, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And whether you want them out there on post or whatever checking on you or not, it's that conversation about how visible are they? I mean, I know that I've had tons of conversations about with certain senior leaders like, your airmen don't even know what you look like. You don't even know who you are. You need to build some credibility by coming out here and talking to them and coming out on post. Like, I get it, you're busy, but you need to do this. And so there's a precedent for that, even in an expectation from people who are being led, and that expectation is on those people who are leading them. And
Right.
so this is it's not unusual to say that. And I know that you brought up the fact about like going to the southern border and spending time, or if you're maybe your Department of Homeland Security, that could be something that you have to do. But Zach and I talk about pretty often is should there be an obligation to have military service to hold political office? He and I have different thoughts on that. I don't think it should be a necessity. But I say this: I think that there should be a separate process. I think that it could be an option to have military service to quantify, that experience at the beginning. But there should be something else as far as like a civil service where you can go and maybe you are working, at the border, or maybe you're working somewhere locally to, give people as they enter adulthood an understanding of community and helping people out and using that as a baseline. So to say, I think that that's something that should happen personally. But what you were talking about by having our politicians go and do that, like, you made me think of exactly like what's going on with Alejandro Mayorkas right now. I think you probably know what I'm talking about. He's getting impeached, and I think the impeachment thing is a little weird. I think firing him is probably better than the impeachment process, but it's so weird that the issues at the border, like you're talking about, are bipartisan. They shouldn't be, or they are partisan. This should be an American issue, not something that we all are split on and presenting it as a political thing. Um, and you have people like him who, to me, I know that they don't spend any time at the border. He should spend 30 days down there with Border Patrol, sitting there, moving, whatever the barbed wire from the river
Hmm.
banks, or whatever, doing all that stuff. If you're going to tell me what to do, you're going to make policy that, I know that these federal Border Patrol agents are not fans of, right? And tell me what to do. You should be down here in the shit with me, excuse my French.
Yeah. Can we
If
curse
you're
on
going
this
to tell me what to
podcast?
do, you know what I mean? You 100% can. The only
Mhm.
reason I was like trying to hold it back is because I don't like, I know
Yeah,
you're running. So, but you go right ahead if you're okay with
yeah.
it. Yeah, the F bombs are cool.
All right. Like I just one or two might come out. Yeah.
You're good.
Your question? Did you
Mhm.
have a question for me, or?
Oh no, well, I was just kind of speaking in general. Like I was agreeing with you that, um, I think it should be 100% mandatory for you to go and spend time working with people at the lowest level doing things. The border is a great example. If you're Department of Transportation, maybe you head out over to the light rail and you're out there every morning with this dude that opens up the light rail at 4 o'clock in the morning and you're standing there, that kind of thing. It just brings an element of reality to your position that you're not just existing in the ivory tower, so to speak. People wake up every day working for you and do this freaking job. Everything in the state of California is run like pretty much by the state,
Right.
federally,
Yeah.
So it's a good example of that. This bureaucratic nonsense that happens here, it's not being done very well. So, you know, um, I like that. That's one of the things you say you want to champion. I don't really have a question about it. I very much agree with you. The one question I would have is how much what happens at the border affects your district.
Well, I'll answer your question, and then I have some stuff to say about what you said earlier, or what
Please
you just touched on. Our
go for
district's
it.
about 2.5 hours away from the border, right? So the direct effect that it has on this district is we're a pass through. You know what I mean? We're a pass through not
Mm-hmm.
only for migrants, we're a pass through for
Mm-hmm.
drugs, we're a pass through for
Mm-hmm.
so many different things that aid the issues at the southern border. And I would caution people to and I know this is not what you meant by that, but I would caution people to think about this in geography terms. It's not about how close or how
Mm-hmm.
far you are from the border, which is one of the reasons I think that something like the Money Where Your Mouth Is Act would be very beneficial
Mm-hmm.
for the country, because the
Mm-hmm.
Republicans right now in the House are having a tough time getting the Democrats to. I think HR 2's already been passed, and it's sitting
Mm-hmm.
within the Senate. That's democratically controlled. Correct. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things where if you can grab somebody, not literally, but if you can grab
Yeah, yeah.
somebody and force them to look at the issues, I got to be careful with that,
Mm-hmm.
because owning a company like Redefine Violence, people might get the wrong idea. But if you can grab somebody and force them to look at what's
Touche.
actually going on, then
Mm-hmm.
I think that at worst case, it puts them in the position, right, to go back
Mm-hmm.
and look at their constituents and lie to them and say that there's no
Mm-hmm.
issue at the border, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happened to line up that that's the topic of this election cycle. If that wasn't it, who knows what would have been the topic of this election cycle? But right now, that's the topic. So
Mm-hmm.
why this isn't being championed, or why this isn't being repeated, or why this isn't being accepted is crazy. Why no one has come up with
Mm-hmm.
this idea to say, hey, you know what? Why don't we force ourselves to go down there and see what really goes on? In that video I mentioned, they only come down here for a flyby photo op, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that the Republicans went down there the other day. There were 60 of them that headed down there. That was great. You can all
Mm-hmm.
afford hotels. Some of you have already
Mm-hmm.
worn plate carriers in your life and in your careers. Stick
Mm-hmm.
around. No press, no politics. Stick around. That would have been a great opportunity for you to look left and right at your peers that haven't had that opportunity to wear a uniform in life or a bulletproof vest in life, and say, you know what? We're gonna ride two-man with these agents tonight. We're gonna go out in the
Mm-hmm.
brush. We're gonna
Yeah.
do that and then report back to the American people. And that gives you so much more credibility as a representative. So
Mm-hmm.
man, it's just it goes along with everything that you said. I think that people get into certain positions or into certain statuses in their life, and they think that they're above others. Or
Mm-hmm.
if not that, then they just don't realize how important it is for them to go back and revisit the ranks that they came up with. This kind of rhetoric and topics that I'm touching on, it's not original. It comes from my time in the military. I don't know how you are Air
Mm-hmm.
Force, right? When the Marines, every two
Mm-hmm.
years with an infantry unit, or almost every 2 years, we'd have a change of command ceremony where one man would look
Mm-hmm.
at each other, would look at another in the eye and say, "Hey, this is what I did with these men. This is as far as I brought them. hopefully
Mm-hmm.
you can do more, and hopefully you can do better. That's the essence of a change of command ceremony. There's going to be some sergeant
Mm-hmm.
majors out there that said that's not what it is, but that's pretty much what it is, right? So that kind
Right.
of that kind of spirit and that kind of ethos is missing from our
Mm-hmm.
government, where you say this is as far as I got to go. I believe
Mm-hmm.
there has to be somebody out there that can do more
Mm-hmm.
or better. And maybe there isn't. Maybe that next guy falls flat on his face. But if he falls, then the one after that can do more, or only do
Mm-hmm.
better.
Yeah.
Um,
Could you imagine?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Let's say, just could you imagine the sort of trust somebody would build if they kid up and went out there for a night and just rode bitch and went out into the brush, like you said? That'd be crazy. That would
The-
make national news, probably.
yeah, and to touch on the topic of having have served in the military before you run for office or before you hold an office,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know
Mm-hmm.
that it's necessary, but I will say be very weary of anyone who only wants to be a public servant in a suit. I
Mm-hmm.
really, really get
Valid point.
upset when I hear these politicians speak, because I've go to all these different events and they say, I'm pro law enforcement, I'm this, I'm that. They say their age, they're in their 40s or 30s, and I start to do the math.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, we've been at war for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't serve. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe you couldn't
Mm-hmm.
serve. Then it's like, okay, well, you don't have any law enforcement background either, Okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
let's just say health or otherwise. Have you ever ridden in a paramedic truck, nursing? Have you ever put
Mm-hmm.
yourself on the line at all in any way, shape, or form whatsoever? No.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you just want to do this when it's comfortable. You just want to do this in a
Mm-hmm.
suit. You just got a wild hair up your
Exactly.
ass one day and you wanted to be a politician. You don't actually want to serve, because there's plenty of ways to serve prior to
Mm-hmm.
becoming a politician and prior to
Yeah.
making a profession running your mouth, or by
Mm-hmm.
just running your mouth.
Exactly, man.
I'm a
That's
little
what I'm
excited.
saying, dude. Any some sort of no, you should be. I like seeing it because it should be some sort of public service. Like I said, if it's not military service, it's something else. Even if it's something that the government puts together as a civil service, or if you're an EMT, or like you're to use your example about EMT, something like that, where you're helping people and you're not necessarily getting much out of it. You know what I mean? Other than a
Yeah.
paycheck. Obviously, you're going to get paid, but you're taking care of people all day. As somebody who's done law enforcement for a decade and a half in the Air Force, it's pretty thankless. I'll say that.
No.
I don't do it for the thanks and all that other shit. I'm just saying, you get put into these positions where you see people at their worst days. You deal with a lot. You understand just the grind a little bit more than the people maybe who haven't done anything like that. So I think it just adds an element of legitimacy to what you're trying to do if you're willing to step up and help people and do those sorts of service sorts of things for your community. It says a lot more about you than showing up in a suit and being like, hey, I'll just do this.
I have all this money
But
now. I'd really like to be a public servant,
yeah, if you don't mind,
if you don't mind.
I'd like to
Yeah.
continue making money. And special interest lineup right here.
Yeah. By putting
Uh,
myself in a
you know,
position that'll serve the companies that I own. Yeah.
exactly. And to go back to what you were saying before, like at the border, it's crazy to me it's scary to me how much separating yourself from a situation that is as serious as the border and treating it like a political issue and then using that as the reason to prevent you from going down there and looking at it by
Hmm.
pretending it like it's some straw man that your political enemy, so to speak, is using against you.
Right.
That's just ridiculous. And it goes back to something that I've said before on the podcast, and you may have seen it on one of our reels. Is it's like a cold civil war that's going on. These two political parties that really run our country, they are there just to prevent the other from winning now. It's not about you and I as the American citizen. You're not doing this to help us out. To me, it seems more about like shooting the other in the foot. And that's what this issue at the border is where I'm going to make it a political issue so I don't have to give it my attention because it's just a political straw man argument that the Republicans or the Democrats are using to get leverage on me. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, that drives me crazy too, because it's a house divided. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something else that I said before. I don't think that we're the United States anymore. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we are so divided and so polarized.
Mm.
we have allowed ourselves to become that. And I'll say the media
Mhm.
because I can't think of a better phrase for it, but
Yeah.
media has played a big part in it. It used to be, at least the way I understand it, the law, or
Mhm.
excuse me, the newsman would say, "Hey, everybody, look at the news that's behind me. This is all the news we've gathered." Right
Yeah.
now, they stand in front of the news and they say, "Hey, don't look at what's behind me. Look at me. Look at me. I'll
Mhm.
tell you. You just need to trust me. Trust me.
Exactly.
I'll let you know everything you need to know about what's behind me." And we almost never get a full picture of everything that's going on almost any issue.
Mhm.
So I think that's played a big part. And I don't think that we're sending people up there that want to work with the other party. Now, you say that as a
Agreed.
Republican, this might hurt me in the primary. I don't know, but
Mhm.
it's almost as if they want to choose the person that's farthest on their side. And
Mhm.
it's not that I don't embody those values. It's not that I don't consider myself a strong Republican and want to fight and champion for those values.
Mhm.
But if you're gonna look for somebody who only wants to put the other party down and never to open the door and never to have that conversation, at least have the conversation, right? Saying that's like
Mhm.
shooting yourself in the foot, where like, you know what? Yeah, I'm willing to
Mhm.
sit down and have a conversation. I'm not saying that I'm going to concede anything. I'm not saying that I'm going to give them what they want, but I'd like to talk to them because at the end of the day, they are my countrymen, except for like the crazy,
Mhm.
wacky ones that want to do weird shit. But yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a whole separate
that's a
conversation
whole separate
for sure.
conversation. Those I don't want to talk to you at all.
No. It's scary. There's a lot of those where I live. I live in between two of the bigger cities in California, San Francisco and Sacramento. So it's I was talking about this on our last episode. We talked to Aaron Love about how you talk to people, and if you introduce yourself as somebody who's moderate and you try to say like, look, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I am pro-American, and whoever is going to help out the United States, I don't care if there's a D next to your name, I don't care if there's an R next to your name, it doesn't matter to me. Wherever right comes from, that's where I'm going.
Right.
But there's so many people out there now who are almost mad at you for not taking a position or drawing that line in the sand and stepping it one way or the other.
Yeah.
And it speaks to what you're saying, that the climate here has become so enriched with that partisanship that it almost becomes too difficult to be that moderate. So like, what kind of keeps you focused on saying America is my focus and not just what the political parties are hoping that I will do for them or whatever?
Well, I don't think that the parties, to be honest, are that far apart
Okay.
in the sense that they were never designed to be that far apart. The political parties have
Mm-hmm.
shifted and their ideas have shifted over time and over generations. I think that there are factions in each party that are pulling it and that are very vocal and that are very chaotic with the way they try to get their point across. So
Mm-hmm.
those those are the people that I wish we would stop paying attention to,
Mm-hmm.
because if we just let them shout out they're crazy and just yell, I think eventually America will realize that, oh, you're not really a Democrat, you're not really a Republican, you're just crazy. You're just
Mm-hmm.
trying to make it about yourself and about your own individual issues. So for me, I mean, it's just having an open conversation, and an open heart and an open mind. I don't look at anybody on the other side as my enemy, unless you're a pedo, and then I'll want to kill you.
Valid.
But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah, but
absolutely.
they just happen to be on the other side. But um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't approach any situation like that. I think it comes from
Mm-hmm.
the things that we do and the things that we train in and the things that we experience and we want to continue to experience. That's where redefined violence comes in. It's the whole
Mm-hmm.
mantra of that is peaceful yet capable, and
Mm-hmm.
taking the knowledge that you have of being able to do something and not having to or not wanting to. So I said all that to say, when I approach this politically, it's more about having that conversation for me. I'm on the Republican side. I am a Republican. I think that this party holds the moral high ground in the battle. If you're looking at the
Okay.
battle strategically in the United States, I think that this is the party that can at least see us to the other side, and take
Mm-hmm.
the country forward, for the next generation. I say this is the political party that doesn't expect me to vote or think a certain way because of the color of my skin. This is the political
Mm-hmm.
party to me that thinks that freedom of speech and the right to defend yourself are both absolute. There's non-negotiables. You cannot give an inch when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
those two topics. You cannot.
Mm-hmm.
History shows us that you cannot, because once you
Yes.
do, you are fucked. Sorry.
Yep.
You are.
No.
So
Zero
this is the
apologies.
party that I think can take us, forward to the future. Because
Yeah.
it's the other side. While they're not my enemy, they've got some pretty crazy people in that party. And
Mm-hmm.
until they find a way to clean house, and until they find a way, the moderates there find a way to expunge all of the nonsense and all of the hate and all of the race bait. I can't say bullshit. Can't say bullshit. Yeah. The race
You can
bait
say whatever you want,
bullshit. All
man.
right. The race bait
Mm-hmm.
bullshit that's on their side, then the Democratic Party will never or will not have any
Mm-mm.
credibility until they do that. Until they stop
Mm-hmm.
pandering, until they stop worrying about the amount of melanin in people's skin, they don't stand a chance.
Mm-hmm.
They don't stand a chance to stand or to, sit side by side with moral authority. That's
Mm-hmm.
my biggest issue with that side, is they care so much about race. Dude, I
Mm-hmm.
get called whitewashed. I get called all kinds of nonsense, like, how the fuck are you a
It's
Republican?
ridiculous.
And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
wait a minute. That means that when you look at me, you see the color of my skin. Pretty sure there
If
was an
you ain't black,
influential. Yeah, if you ain't black, what did he say? If
right?
you
Yeah.
if you don't vote for me,
If
you
you
ain't
you don't
black.
vote for me, you ain't black. Yeah, dude, that's
And we
wild.
let this fucking idiot just say that on
I
television,
know.
and
Mm-hmm.
we're just okay with it. There's been
Mm-hmm.
no other members of the House that have just kind of brought that up constantly. And I don't know if you get
Yeah.
muzzled. I don't know if you get told, like, hey, bro, it's kind of taboo. Don't talk about that kind of stuff. That should be talked about
Mm-hmm.
all the time, especially going into this
Yeah.
presidential election, where it's pretty important. I'm actually very scared of I don't know who they is, Joe Rogan, because I know he hates they. You know what I mean? I don't know who
Yeah.
they is, but
Right.
they
Right.
are
Right.
somebody, and I don't know what they
It
are
is.
going to allow to happen, or they are not going to allow to happen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the fact that dumb motherfucker said that, is
Yep.
beyond me, and people just are okay with it. They're okay with
Right.
our president having said, if you ain't black, or if you don't vote for me, then you ain't black.
Well, they come out with all the excuses in the world when he said it. He's like, "Oh, he's old.
He's got dementia.
He's
He's
from a
out.
different generation." 100%, he
He's
does.
got dementia.
Well, I mean, it seems. I'm just gonna ask you this question. You
I
tell me
hope I
what you
don't lose
think.
votes
Like,
because I'm cursing
what,
so much. I'm sorry.
no, don't be sorry, dude. Not at all, man. If you watch other shit, like this is pretty
Yeah.
PG. And but no, I'm just curious. Like, we were just talking about this with Aaron. We've talked about it with a couple other people. Is, do you really think that the Democratic Party is going to prop him up again for another term? Because to me, it just seems like there's no fucking way, unless this dude is just like drinking adrenochrome right from the fucking source or something. You know what I mean? Like, and getting pumped full of fucking drugs and steroids. Like, it just. We were talking about the possibility of a like a Michelle Obama ticket, like them trying to like swoop in, parachute in, right, and say, hey, this is what we're going to do now, and use that momentum to try and do that. Do you see them propping him up again?
I don't know. I hope not. I
Mm-hmm.
I want to meet more liberals in my life. I'm in Texas. I'm in
Mm-hmm.
South Texas, so they're not.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't that many. I'm sure I'll get some emails after this.
Right.
I'll meet you. You know,
Go to
because I
Austin.
want to get into the mind. I want to sit down. Like I said, I just want to sit down and have a conversation. What in the is back to the bus analogy? Do you
Mm-hmm.
hate Trump's tweets and kind of nonsense things that he says sometimes off the wall? Do you hate that much that you're willing to pay
Mm-hmm.
an astronomical amount of money, at the grocery store, that you're willing to jeopardize our security? You're willing to put your family at risk in so many different ways because of some
Mm-hmm.
some things that this guy says, like
Yeah.
that's insane to me.
Yeah.
It's really absolutely insane to me. I'm not, listen, I support Trump. I do. Just to answer all the
Mm-hmm.
questions right now, because that's the main thing I get on TikTok. Do you support Trump? And just
Right.
for everyone's essay, situational awareness,
Mm-hmm.
the comment section on any video is not the place to have an actual debate. If you want to have a conversation like this, you can email me. We'll do a podcast together. We'll do whatever you want. Email me. I will answer questions. I can show you screenshots of where I've answered questions. I've called people who do answer me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I respond to a lot of the positive compliments because it's a quick thank you. But if you're asking me about topics and all this kind of stuff, email me. I set aside
Mm-hmm.
most Sundays. What's today? Sunday, to do stuff like this, to
Mm-hmm.
answer you back, and I will do it
Mm-hmm.
as much as possible. So just a quick little
That's
caveat on
awesome.
there. Yeah. Um,
No.
yes, I support Trump over this guy.
Mm-hmm.
You better believe it.
Oh
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
absolutely. To go back to what you were saying, we were just joking about how like people when Putin invaded Ukraine, they were like, "I'm willing to pay a little bit more at the pump so that Putin isn't able to win this war," and it's just like that's just insanity to me that you would sit there and say something like that. How much can you really tell me about Ukrainian politics? How much can you tell me about what happened, with Ukraine? When Obama was president, the first time some of this shit happened, like you don't even know what you're talking about. Like, let's have a conversation about all of that. So it's just so funny how the media is very good at getting people in what's what I'm looking for. They draw that sort of thing out of people to where they get their emotions involved. They care so much that they go put a bumper sticker on their car about Ukraine when maybe they didn't even know what the hell was going on there the day before. And it's so good at getting people hyper focused on these issues. Like you said before, look over here, don't look over there. Um, it's sort of scary. You have to really kind of make an effort to remove yourself from that and try and find what's going on and pay attention. It's um we like to joke that if the media is making a big deal about something, then there's something they don't want you to see. So start looking everywhere else for like something else that's going on, because whatever is making the national news right now is the distraction, so to speak. You
Yeah.
ever notice that?
Yeah, exactly. In my campaign announcement, I said,
Mm-hmm.
it's the most disingenuous journalist to ever hold this profession, a profession that was once revered and relied on to inform
Mm-hmm.
the electorate and keep power in the hands of
Mm-hmm.
those governed. I write all this stuff because I look at what the hell's been going on, and whether it's poetic or not, I don't know, but I like to fluff things, and I like to write stuff out like that and think of it in terms of
Mm-hmm.
of uh, how things can be, and how things should be. And it's a disappointment, man. It's a disappointment. Thank
Mm-hmm.
God we have things like this. Even YouTube's a little weird, but
Yeah.
there are outlets and people are fighting back against the system, and that's all you
Mm-hmm.
can do. You can't
Yeah.
ever, you can't ever like think to yourself, everything that I'm hearing is the truth, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
everything that's being told to me is the truth. The problem, I
Mm-hmm.
think, and this is just opinion, comes when it takes effort. It takes effort for you to
Mm-hmm.
go and do your own homework, because you got to drive to work, you got to drive home from work, you got your
Exactly.
kids, you got school, you got jujitsu, you got whatever it is that you got to go do. Man,
Mm-hmm.
there's almost no time. I mean, I feel speculation. I feel like that's what's relied upon by they to keep us in a
Yes.
place that keeps us in the dark. And it's all you can do is just encourage other people. I hate to be a preacher, and say, hey, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't. But if we don't start, something's going to happen, and we are going to be
Mm-hmm.
overtaken, especially voting wise, man. Voting, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
I have had political apathy my entire life. I never thought that it mattered. I never cared. I never gave a crap. But it
Mm-hmm.
matters so much. It matters so
Yeah.
much more than you understand. When metrics start to get read and the number of registered voters start to come up, and you realize, like, holy crap, this is all just mathematical evidence that things can change if only the number would get to here, but then it stays
Mm-hmm.
here. And once it stays here, the guys that are running the status quo say, oh, thank God it didn't get to
Mm-hmm.
here, because
Mm-hmm.
once it gets to here, now we no longer control the narrative. Now we don't know. Now it's a crapshoot on who's going to get elected. So
Mm-hmm.
to everybody in the, whatever, just districts worldwide, go out and register to vote. I mean, for anybody that
Mm-hmm.
listens to this, it's way more important than you think. And I know that you think that it doesn't matter, but it really
Mm-hmm.
fucking does. You know,
Yeah. No, there's
go
definitely a
ahead.
lot of that. No, I was gonna say there's definitely a lot of that apathy in the younger generations, so like 18 to 22 crowd. Because I try to have some of these conversations with some of the airmen that I've worked with about what do you think is important? Do you vote? Do you think voting matters? And the majority of them say no, they don't think it matters. And I try to explain, it's like, yeah, it does. You should go vote. You should go, it's your right. You need to go exercise that right to go and vote, you know? And it's just kind of sad. And it goes back to what you were saying before. And I know I like to say that history doesn't always repeat itself, but history rhymes. And we were talking about the. I gave you the example from Rome earlier, and the whole bread and circuses thing, which you're probably familiar with. Nothing groundbreaking, but it's all about distractions, keeping people distracted so they don't want to exercise their rights. They think that it's pointless to go do this because that's the sort of thing that the information we're fed gets spun as, you know. And so it's one of those things where it does take effort, and that's why you don't do it, like you said. But if more people will be willing to insert themselves and be more proactive instead of reactive about what goes on, there might be an opportunity for us to right the ship, so to speak. I like that part of your message is what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, and that's, if you're on the Republican side, you need to realize that we suck at reaching out to
Mm,
younger voters. We just don't do it. It's
mm-hmm.
just not even. And now
Definitely.
that I'm part of the apparatus and I'm inside of the machine, I look around, I was like, there's nobody reaching out to younger conservatives, younger Republicans, younger
Mm-mm.
sane minded people. They're there. There's just there's no effort, you know? And I'm okay, let me back up. I'm speaking in super general terms. I don't know the entirety of the country. I don't know the entirety of the Republican Party. In my area,
Mm-hmm.
I like to speak on specifics. My area, I don't see it. But I
Mm-hmm.
know that nationwide, the Democrats are really good. They're really good at
Oh yeah.
making an appeal to a younger generation, and that's something that we don't have, and it's something that we lack. And hopefully, I mean, I'm 33, so hopefully, I don't know if I'm that old,
Mm-hmm.
but hopefully I can bridge the
You're a little bit
gap.
young. You're 3 years younger than me. I'm
There you go.
36.
Yeah, hopefully I
Yeah.
can bridge the gap a little bit and be kind of I don't want to say a voice 'cause that sounds cheesy, but yeah, just be a bridge, be a
Right.
bridge
Yeah. Yeah.
for that younger generation, because they need to realize that if they don't get involved, whichever way, vote Republican for your own good. Trust me, it'll come into play later on in life when you start to own assets and you start to make some real income, and you actually start to contribute to
Mm-hmm.
society versus just leeching off of it. But um,
Mm-hmm.
if we don't get younger people involved, we're screwed. You know
Yeah. I think what
that
you
makes me
said is
sound
totally
old, but yeah.
valid. Well, I mean, you're getting old. We're up
Yeah.
there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Uh, but I think what you said is totally valid. That I've even said that before. That Democrats are very good at appealing to the younger crowd, which is so smart. And there's a precedent for that when it comes to especially like radical type movements. Where do you go first? You radicalize the young because they're the most impressionable. They're the ones that you can feed a lot of this stuff to, and they're going to take off and run with it because it gives them some sort of purpose. And that's what you're looking for at that age. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that's why a lot of people look at like Vivek and find him to be a little bit refreshing. Is he doesn't have a head full of gray hair, a bunch of wrinkles, and doesn't routinely buy Geritol. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I completely agree with you that we need young representation. I've said that so many times, and I always say this too, that Republicans sort of shoot themselves in the foot very routinely by being out of tune with the younger crowd. that
Hmm.
that Republicans can make a lot of sense with some of the stuff that they talk about. And there's this whole debate about conservative values. Is there anything left to conserve, so to speak, right? That's
Right.
why so many people are apathetic about this. But if what you said is so true, if you're trying to be like that voice, the bridge, that face, whatever colloquialism you want to say, right, cheesy or
Yeah.
not, um, need more people like you to enter that space and do this, because otherwise the battle is just going to be even more of an uphill one, and be lost, because we're all sick of old guys, old women, whatever,
Yeah.
being in there. And gotta stop shooting yourself in the foot with, not you, but like proverbially you in the foot with some of the stuff Republicans can be so out of touch with,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, what would you say to somebody who is like 18 to 22 years old and is looking sort of at all the chaos and the perceived, depravity that goes on in our country and it seems to be celebrated? What sort of advice would you give them other than voting, like you just said, for them to say, like, you look, man, I want to have a family, I want to have a career, I want that American dream, but it seems dead. What would you say to that person?
Well, I'd say start to learn as much about finance as humanly possible as early on in your
Mm-hmm.
life, because I think that's typically the driving force of what drives people towards a more conservative side as they start
Mm-hmm.
to grow up. um, and finance branches off into everything. It branches off into family, it branches off into longevity, it branches off into your retirement, and
Right.
overall, I don't know too many. Well, I don't say that. I was gonna say I don't know too many crappy people that make a lot of money. I'm sure there are many, but it helps you understand what's needed in life. Um, you're gonna say something?
No, no,
Oh, okay,
nodding
okay.
along with
It
you.
helps you understand what's needed from you in life in order to
Mm-hmm.
succeed. Now, with that comes the way I wish we would approach education in school.
Mm-hmm.
Where I don't know about you or where you grew up and stuff, but I was the first time I applied for a mortgage was 25. I bought my first house at 25, right? It's the first time I had ever
Mm-hmm.
seen a mortgage application.
Mm-hmm.
That shouldn't have been the first time I seen a mortgage application. The
No
first time I
doubt.
bought a car, was in the military. And what do
Mm-hmm.
you get? 22% interest rate. That we all make fun of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's the norm nowadays. So now it's probably 30% for people in the military. But
Right, right. Gotta
um,
get that charger.
yeah, I got to get that charger, man. Financial education, true financial education, and financial literacy is something that's not taught. So if that's
Mm-hmm.
something that could be focused on early on in life, I think that it would give you a better sense of what's going to be required of you later on in life when it does come to providing for yourself or starting a business or having a family. And then you're
Mm-hmm.
introduced unwittingly to conservative values, and you're introduced secondhand to what really is the best thing for you going forward in life. It's almost like you're fighting indoctrination. You're fighting this type of rhetoric from teachers and professors that have their own agendas as well. And why
Mm-hmm.
financial literacy is not taught in schools is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
The way I would do it if I had a magic wand, 4 years of high school, every year you would start an LLC, do a mortgage application, and buy 5 different cars, every single
Mm-hmm.
year, to the point where once you're a senior in high school, you can run through a freaking mortgage app like that. You can start an
Mm-hmm.
LLC like that. You know, um,
Mm-hmm.
you could do a 1031 exchange where, it has to do with investment properties. About low cost index funds and their benefits over mutual funds, and so
Mm-hmm.
many different things that I think would set you up properly at a younger age. And
Mm-hmm.
then to benefit the Republican Party, I think that unwittingly sets you up for a proper way of viewing the world, a proper way of viewing government. I mean, I'm no economics major at all. I don't have a college degree, by the way. It's another bombshell that'll be out there. But just don't spend more money than you make, and I think you'll be
Pretty
all right.
fair.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some nuances that go along with that. Credit is important, but
Mm-hmm.
in general, don't make more money or don't spend more money than you make. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that'd be my advice to the younger generation, is do that, man. Focus on as much as you can. I learned a lot through YouTube University,
Mm-hmm.
and going
Dude, YouTube
to,
is great.
yeah, and going to Barnes and Noble and buying books on finance and Rich Dad Poor Dad, and so many
Mm-hmm.
different things that I had to teach myself. Well, I'll say teach myself. I had to get interested in it myself, and then I had some great people around me that taught me. My dad and other people around me in my life that showed me how to manage money and showed me what the proper things to do were. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of a complicated answer, but that's what I would do. That's what I would give anybody who's young advice before voting, before any of that stuff. study finance. And I don't mean going to Harvard. I don't mean going to any of that stuff. If you're going, great, that's cool. But you can study finance in many different ways, and generally that'll set you up for success in life. It's
Mm-hmm.
Jim Rome that said profits are better than wages. Understand what that means. If I misquoted that, I'll correct it. Profits are better than wages. Understand how to implement that in your life. How
Mm-hmm.
understand how to make money while you're sleeping. Understand all this kind of stuff, man. It's
And
shit
the
that you
elder
hear
is
all the
Jim Rome.
time. Yeah, Jim Rome. Yeah. So that's my advice to the young person out there: is get your stuff together when
I
it
like
comes to
that.
finance. Yeah.
Financial literacy. Well, man, I know that you're a busy guy.
We can keep
Um,
going for a little bit longer if you got some more stuff.
yeah.
That's up to
Oh,
you.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I was just gonna ask you. What, like, for you, somebody who is looking, maybe this is their first time voting, right? What's a message that is most important to you that you'd like somebody to know about why they should vote for you, and why there should be, trust given, put into you.
Trust put into me as like I'm talking to my district.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look at what I'm saying when it comes to government, and look at government approaches, and study my opponent's answers. If
Mm-hmm.
you don't see the ability to rein in, or you don't see that person's ability to rein in their own ego in any sort
Mm-hmm.
of way, then they're starting from a compromised position, just spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
spiritually and mentally. They're starting from a compromised position. So it's amazing to me that people can't talk about giving up power. They only talk about wanting to get it, especially in an election. The topic is
Mm-hmm.
about them getting power. Why should they get power? Why should you vote for them? So
Mm-hmm.
make sure that whoever you're voting for, you can trust them with that power. And with
Right.
that comes having them verbally talk about their ability to let it go. And I'm not just talking about their term. I'm not just talking about their seat in Congress. I'm talking about money. When money's thrown at you, that way, okay, I've heard this person be able to talk about not having to hold on to power. This should mean that they don't need to rely on being bought, or that I can rely on him not being bought, him or her.
Mm-hmm.
Only two options, by the way. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things that,
Facts.
yeah, it's I would say look at that. I think it's pretty easy to see through someone's bullshit
Yeah.
nowadays. And if you
Agreed.
don't trust that person, hey, if I don't earn your vote, then that means that I didn't do enough to earn your vote.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely look at all of us, and judge us. That's what we're doing. We're offering ourselves up for judgment. As messed up as
Mm-hmm.
it sounds, that's what it is. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to get over a lot of shyness. I had to get over a lot of, insecurities and a lot of stuff to even put myself out there. But ultimately, I had the power to do it, and that power was given to me. I believe that it was divine. I believe that it was
Mm-hmm.
God. I believe that I had some help in doing this, because I'm not the kind of person. I have no social media presence, but at all before, besides Redefine Violence, and that was one of the reasons I
Mm-hmm.
didn't put my face on the company, but
Mm-hmm.
because of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But I was able to overcome all that, because I think that this is more important than my insecurities, or the harsh critique that I am on myself. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
That's kind of segues perfectly into what I was going to ask you. Is your faith must play a pretty big hand in what you're doing every day.
Yeah, it does. My relationship with God is, let's see, I grew up Catholic, and
Mm-hmm.
this will sound cheesy, but after going to wherever we went to in the world, and doing the things that we did, and having survived some of the things that we survived, and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
man, you kind of part ways with God sometimes, and I'm not speaking for every veteran out there. I'm not even saying that that's the
Sure
general
enough.
norm. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what happened to me, parted ways, and started to ask myself, well, why, why did this happen this way, or why didn't this happen this way? And then, man, real quickly, you realize, like, hey, these are the wrong questions that I need to be asking. you know I shouldn't
Right.
even be asking any questions at all. I should be super thankful for what I have. And every day of my life is now a requirement to live to the fullest, because of those guys, and because of everything that we left behind, and
Mm-hmm.
the people that we lost. So that's my relationship
Right.
with God. I like to explain it as, if you go bowling and you put up the bumpers on the lanes, right? I now am at a point in my life where I can look back and see God's hand, guiding me down and keeping me out
The
of the gutter.
bumpers.
Yeah, the bumpers,
Right.
sometimes literally. So,
Mhm.
I can I can see that, and I can see that and there's no denying it for me. It's I I can't even imagine not contributing what I have, which is way too much already,
Mhm.
to anything else. But that there's no happenstance, there's no chance, there's no luck. I think
Mhm.
that's what it is. So yeah, that's where I stand on the religious side. My relationship with God's between me and Him, and I don't have a specific denomination. I get asked, especially in the conservative world, or are you a Christian?
Mhm.
I was like, well, no,
Right.
but I don't have the specific guidelines of being a Christian. But I tell you what,
Mhm.
me and God are pretty close, you know.
Right.
And I think that's what's most
What
important.
right. I mean, I do definitely believe in having some sort of faith and belief in something spiritual. I think that plays a lot. And when I think you delve into yourself and start like thinking about looking back, like you said, at the bumpers that, kept you on that line and why we're getting older. These are questions I think that we all start asking ourselves too, the more we get older, right?
Yeah.
But if you're looking inside and trying to make changes in your life, you may look towards like philosophy, maybe like stoicism, something like that, or something spiritual. I think that those, whether you're looking at it through the filter, the lens of philosophy or spiritualism or whatever, trying to get this esoteric understanding of things, we're all having the same conversation. It's spiritual regardless. I think we're more than just, flesh and blood. We're not, just, stardust like everybody says. I think
Yeah.
there's more to us. I believe in the concept of the soul. I think that that's very real. But yeah, I do think that having something that we talk about here too is being, mentally prepared, spiritually prepared, physically prepared. And Zach and I like to use the term that like those are the fronts that we have as human beings, the physical, the mental, the spiritual fronts. And we like to say to fortify all fronts. And that spiritual pillar of that is a huge place. And not just being a person, especially I feel like it's a big part of being a man and how I view myself as a man, and like leading my family. But I think it's just part of who you are as a complete person.
Definitely.
But I was
That's
kind of
proof. So
curious.
yeah.
Yeah, hit you there. Um, I just curious. Like all of us are vets. We always say like there's something in the military that I learned that I've taken and co-opted into like my civilian life, and it's kind of helped me understand things or whatever. Is there something that like you learn in the military that is still true to this day that you maybe carry with you in your sort of your political approach or how you introduce yourself to people, that kind of thing?
Yeah. I'd have to say love for strangers. Love for strangers,
Oh, we're good at that.
and the ability to, whether it was winning hearts and minds or
Mm.
literally just loving the new guy that showed up to your unit, be out of force, you know,
F and G.
F and G. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It really gives you a different perspective when you approach human beings, and I'll say that was, I'm gonna say, the first time I was introduced to race issues, but it makes you realize that race is bullshit. That race is
Yes.
nonsense. It makes you realize when you've got somebody's bleeding who's black, and then you see that
Mm-hmm.
his blood is red. You got somebody bleeding
Mm-hmm.
who's white, and their blood is red, and Hispanic and their blood is
Yes.
red, and the Asian, their blood is red. Man,
Mm-hmm.
that's where race for me just went out the freaking window. It's funny. It's amazing when comedians use it the right way. You
Yeah.
know, that's
Yeah.
it's hilarious. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to politics and looking at people in a different way, man,
Yeah.
that's just so far removed from my spectrum. And I I literally do hate
Yes.
that where some people are told, well, you should think this way, you should stand over there, you should, because of this, because you are this color, because you grew up this way. I look at the American flag and I think of, oh, this is a perfect example. Do you remember the little 8 ball, like, what am I going to get for
You shake
lunch?
it
And
up.
yeah, and it would
The
show you
fortune.
like,
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah, fortune. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
see when I see the American flag. What
Mm-hmm.
kind of race is it going to be? And then it just shows up, and you're like, oh shit, it's Asian.
I like that.
Or, oh, cool, it's
Yeah.
black.
Oh, they're
You have
Filipino.
no
Yeah.
idea, or
Whatever.
Filipino, or whatever. You
Yeah.
know, because that's what the American flag represents to me
Yes.
specifically, right? It's the I don't want to say the only country in the world. There's countries in the world that allow different types of culture, but it's the one country in the
Hmm.
world where so many different cultures can exist at the same time, and you can still be loyal to the nation. Yes, my
Hmm.
personal dream car is a 1996 Chevrolet Impala on IROC rims. That is true. However, I also love my country very much, and I am an American, and I do not allow myself to be called a Mexican American because I've never paid
Hmm.
Mexican taxes. I've never worn the Mexican
Right.
flag on my uniform, and those people don't
Hmm.
like us either. You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
you're kind of sometimes stuck in the middle, and you're kind of screwed on both ends. But
Hmm.
personally, I don't allow it. I give one chance, one correction opportunity, and you usually don't have to give the second one because
Hmm.
I'm an American. That's it. That's the only way to
Yeah.
look at me. That's the only way I allow myself to be looked at, and that baffles people sometimes too. And I'll get hate on the internet for it. I don't really care.
Hmm.
But yeah, as far as the stuff in the military, to answer your question, that's what it taught me, man. Race
Hmm.
means nothing. Race means nothing. This country
Absolutely.
is made up of everything and anything, and it's made up of some of the most amazing people. And there's going to be people on the other side that say, well, that's why more people should come and all this other stuff. And it's like, look, we have taken the border and we've allowed it to become a symbol of oppression and a symbol of racism, but it's a symbol of
Hmm.
sovereignty. It's a call to the rest. All the border structure is, it's a notice to the rest of the world that we're never to be invaded, we're never to be
Hmm.
influenced, and we're never to be harmed
Hmm.
by an outside power. That is all a
Hmm.
border is. But
Hmm.
the other side, the extreme people on the other side, they've allowed it to turn into, or they have turned it into this race issue when it's not that at all. And the
No.
sooner people realize that trying to screen people that are coming into this country is for your security, trying to create
Yeah.
a pipeline for people to come here legally and people to enjoy what this country has to offer legally benefits those people, and it shuts down um some of the organizations that are down there on the other side of the border, like the cartel and the coyotes and all that other stuff. um it's it's almost as if it's intentional. I gotta be honest with you.
Hmm.
We've
Yeah.
had some Republican controlled houses and senates, and it's almost as if it's intentional. So um I
Hmm.
don't know if you guys do tinfoil hat stuff here or not, but we won't do that
Oh
now.
yeah. I mean, yeah, dude. I mean, if you want to come on another time, we can go a
Yeah,
lot
when
more
I'm not running for
tinfoil.
office. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I was gonna say that it's funny, we were talking about this topic, the border, with Vince Vargas, and we had him
Yeah.
talking about his new book, Borderline. And one of the things he said that actually surprised me was that Obama had some of the most strict policies on the border.
Hmm.
And I've spent some time looking that up, and it's just so funny because I mean, first off, it's true. You
Hmm.
look at some of the protests that went on now about about the border back then, about how they're saying he was too stringent, all this stuff. It's just so quickly how the Overton window moves. But to go back to the racing, you said, like the military, I'm sure you've seen those memes of like, it's like a really nerdy looking white dude with like maybe like a black eye. It's got like a cowboy hat on, and like some
Oh
chick,
yeah.
and then like just whatever amalgamation of people, and said this is friends in the military. It's
Yeah.
like that is the 100% God's honest truth, that is friends in the military.
Yeah.
And none of us care. And I'll even go so far as to say that the ones in the military you meet who do care about race, they're almost the outsiders. People are like, dude, fuck off with that
Oh
shit,
yeah, they get shut down super quick.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's annoying, and that's to go back to the earlier part of the conversation, is the race thing in the military is why it bugs the shit out of me that now we're almost seemingly going back and going backwards with everything when it comes to race, and it almost seems like separate but equal is now the desired outcome, whereas during the civil rights movement, the Jim Crow law, separate but equal wasn't something we were attaining to, something we were trying to get rid of. Want to integrate, not be separate but equal. And so it's just like when it doesn't matter, and you've lived in an environment like the military where no one cares if you're black, white, Asian. Hell, I've even had friends who weren't even born in the United States and were earning their citizenship to be an American through military service. So it doesn't matter, and watching a whole generation or whole millions of people be indoctrinated into thinking it matters is really, really frustrating. I totally agree with that 100%. It
Yeah,
sucks.
I think the so-called, self-proclaimed, because I won't call them that, activists nowadays are.
Mm-hmm.
I'll try to put this in as respectful terms as possible because it deserves it. They're crapping. They're turning their backs on
Mm-hmm.
everything that the civil rights movement was. By
Mm-hmm.
going back and making race the main issue. We're now finally
Yeah.
at a point in our country where if we wanted to, man, we could jump off. We could leap to such higher spiritual, moral, and ethical grounds. But you're trying
Mm-hmm.
to do that with a 100-pound ball chained to your ankle.
Right.
That is these race
Great way to
issues
put it.
that are being thrown on us, and we were right there. We were so close, and now we're, like you said, we're falling down. I feel like we made the leap, and we're just going the
Yeah,
wrong way. And
I
like I said,
agree.
just personally, even running for office, I get asked all the time, well, why are you a Republican? First of
Mm-hmm.
all, I didn't know I needed
Yeah.
a reason. You know what I mean? But
Right.
yeah,
I have a brain
you have a
and two
brain.
eyes, and I can
Yeah,
see,
I don't like
and
paying,
I make my own decisions.
an obscene amount of taxes. So it's, yeah, man,
Right.
it's a crazy world.
Mm-hmm. So we are a fun like to ask and talk about like strange topics on this podcast. So I will ask you one question, and
Do it.
that is, I guess you could say it's like tinfoily, whatever. I don't think it's
Mm-hmm.
tinfoily at all. But disclosure,
Mm-hmm.
UFO disclosure, UAP disclosure, right? Because the government is who's controlling that leak of information as it comes out, right? So if you're trying to be a part of that, you may hear, people talk about it, or may even wind up on some weird committee at some point talking about what comes out. So my
Mm-hmm.
my question to you is, what is your stance on, or not stance, but like your thoughts, your personal thoughts on unidentified aerial phenomenon, you know, in general?
Mm.
As
Yeah,
broad a question as that really is.
it's a broader question. I haven't gotten into it too deep myself, but I will say this:
Mm-hmm.
Murphy's law. Anything that can happen will happen. So,
Mm-hmm.
is it possible? Yeah, hell yeah, it's possible. You can't look at the vastness of the stars.
Right.
You can't look up and not wonder. So if it
Mm-hmm.
is true, this is the most politician answer I'll ever give in my life, by the way. If it is true,
Okay.
but I'll never do this again. Um, if it is true, man, I don't think that that's something that can be approached lightly.
Definitely not.
We
I'm gonna
have
look
to
up a quote
understand
for you real quick.
the
Keep going.
implications of what that would mean, and what that
Right.
would mean for our society, and what that would mean for religions across the world, because many religions, I'll
Yeah.
say maybe all religions, are confined to this earth, and are confined
Mm-hmm.
to here. So
Right.
the implications on humanity would be astronomical. And I would just,
Mm-hmm.
when I have these religious conversations with some friends at work, which is another thing that I love, we could talk about here in a second, but having open conversations about different things and how we've been taught to don't
Mm-hmm.
talk about politics, don't talk about religion, that's taboo. But when I have
Mm-hmm.
these topics or these conversations with friends, I always caution them about being closed-minded about any topic,
Mm-hmm.
and more importantly, not closing your heart to any topic, because
Mm-hmm.
it's important how we approach everything, to include aerial phenomenons, and what that might
Right.
mean if they are in fact little green monsters running around everywhere.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's a highly interesting topic, and I always enjoy like David Grush, who's the one of the ones that just testified before Congress. Anytime I see him speaking publicly, I want to eat it up and hear what he has to say, because he talks about reverse engineering programs and finding biologics on some of these downed craft and biologics. He won't say the word bodies, but to me it sounds exactly like bodies. You know what I mean? But what you're talking about is you can't take this lightly. Is it reminded me of a quote. I had to look it up here, so I wanted to quote the right person, but it's by Arthur C. Clarke, and he says, two possibilities exist. Either we are alone in the
Yeah.
universe or we are not. Both are equally terrifying.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've always, that's a pretty heavy quote.
It
And part
is.
of me thinks that I don't know, it is terrifying in the way that I almost would say you would talk about God, about like fearing God, that something is, that God's power is well, his power is powerful. That's not good, not a
Yeah.
good way to use words, but there's that respect and that fear that you have for it, that when I say like it's terrifying to think that there's other life out there, it could be completely terrifying insofar as they want to see us, be destroyed. But it's also terrifying in that there's so much power and just the unknown of what another intelligent species could look like,
Mm-hmm.
So I've always had like that quote a lot. So when you said it, don't treat it lightly, it's immediately what came to my mind. But
Yeah, definitely, man. It's I don't know. That's a great
yeah.
quote because yeah, either are scary, and what I wanted to mention earlier was this. These conversations. I
Hmm.
don't know if you've experienced it in a workplace or not, but
Hmm.
you're always told we try not to talk about politics. We try not to talk about religion. That's taboo here,
Yeah.
or that's
Hmm.
it's really not allowed. And
Hmm.
first of all, that goes against the First Amendment and your ability to talk about those types of things. But
Hmm.
just when you get told it's strongly discouraged, and I I think that's a norm now, even within your own family.
Hmm.
Within families, people are so divided where they can't even have a conversation. So earlier, what I was talking about, being a Republican who's willing to have a conversation with a Democrat, that's what I mean. Because we cannot
Hmm.
progress unless we're at least willing to talk. I'm gonna die on
Hmm.
my hill, you're gonna die on yours, but we have to
Hmm.
talk, to at least
Yeah.
see if there's a possibility of a fraction of a chance where I can change your mind, or you can change mine, and or something. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Right.
It's insane that we are divided and trained to be divided the way that we are. So
We are. And really, the norm should be teaching people to have respectful conversations with one another about politics and religion, and training our kids to have those conversations rather than avoiding them. Because I think if we had a generation of kids who grew up understanding how to have respectful conversations about those things, that as adults, there would be a lot more that gets done between people, and understanding that respectful conversation is what changes hearts and minds, right? And not the aggression and anger and the underhandedness of which politics is done, especially nowadays. Politics has been rife with that throughout history. You
yeah,
go all the way back, to Caesar being stabbed in the forum or whatever, JFK getting assassinated, and that's a whole nother tinfoily conversation we could have.
yeah,
But that should be the norm, is teaching people to have those respectful conversations and get to, we always like to say, at least in the Air Force, like, how can we get to yes? How can we have a conversation when there's regulations that say we can't do this or that, or something that we have painted ourselves into the corner about? How can we get to yes and get to those conversations, and get to progress, or at least start, right?
yeah,
And there needs to be more of that type of thing. And, to talk in circles a little bit, teaching kids that should be the norm is one of the things that will help in the long run. It's not an immediate solution, but it's part of the immediate solution. And so I like that. You have to be willing to reach across the aisle. Otherwise, you're not fighting for my best interest as an American citizen. You're there for your own self-interest or your party's self-interest. And again, speaking proverbially, not you
yeah,
specifically, but and so yeah, man. I know that you're probably getting a little crunched on time. So if there's
yeah.
anything else that you would like to wrap up with, would like to impart before we hang it up, just give you the floor.
Be as involved as you can be.
Hmm.
That's I guess my overall message. I Everybody wants to be Prince Charming, in life, and I just want to be a fucking lily pad. I want someone. Damn, I just broke this. I just want to be.
Solid.
I want this platform to be used later on in life. By someone else
Hmm.
that may be able to take it all the way home if I don't win, and may be able to gather these ideas and think to themselves, okay, I'm going to use this platform, these ideas, and take it further. Um, I spent a lot of time trying to harness my ego the last few years, which
Mm-hmm.
is the only way that I'm able to stand in front of a camera or stand in front of a person and ask for their vote, because I truly mean when I say that I do not want power. It started with the book The Ego is the Enemy. I read that years
Mm-hmm.
back, and that is where all of this started from. I just, holy crap,
Okay.
what if we could introduce these
Right.
ideas?
Right.
Yeah, what if we could introduce these ideas into politics? What if we could send the types of people to Congress or to power or at any level that don't want power? And obviously that's been talked about throughout history, but
Mm-hmm.
that would be my only piece of advice or parting wisdom is get as
Mm-hmm.
involved as you can and realize that these things do matter. And if you do
Yeah.
want to do this, do it. If you've ever thought about it, if
Mm-hmm.
you've ever wondered, if you've ever wished, if you've ever wanted to, figure out the way. What I did is I saved up some money. It cost $3,100, 31.25 or something like that. I saved up some money, over the last year
Mm-hmm.
and a half, and put it down. Actually got to sell my Harley to help me fund this a little bit more. So if anybody wants my
Sad
Harley,
face.
yeah. So yeah, man, I don't. We're not doing this with money. We're doing this with support and with driving around and trying to talk to as many people as possible. Will I be able to
Mm-hmm.
pull it off? I don't know. I'm going up against a huge, huge establishment, huge machine that has already picked their winner. They've already picked their incumbent as their winner. A lot of local
Right.
groups have already shown favoritism, and they've already publicly put it out that, hey, we've already endorsed Michael Clouds. Like, man, I haven't even spoken at your event. You haven't even had a chance to
Right.
hear me, judge me, look at me in the
Mm-hmm.
eye, and then tell me that you don't want me as a representative. So this machine
Right.
is real. I will say
Right.
that this
Oh yeah.
apparatus, the they, does exist. There's
Mm-hmm.
different levels of it, but it does exist. So in order to
I
change
always
it,
just look at the they.
go ahead.
Sorry, brother. I was just saying. I always just look at the they as the bureaucratic bullshit, and the they is just whoever is part of it and pushing it.
Yeah. And damn it, hold on, give me a second. I broke this thing.
You're good, man.
My brother's gonna be pissed. Um,
But yeah, no.
yeah, it is real. To help out our campaign, the best thing you can do
Mm-hmm.
is interact with social media as much as possible. From now on, every post that we do is going to have a list of the counties that are in the 27th district of Texas, and I'll send them to you
Mm-hmm.
too, so you could post it up on here, just
Yeah,
in the
no doubt.
description. If you know anybody in Texas, if you think you know anybody in Texas, that friend from high school that moved away a long time ago, hey, shoot them a message, shoot them this podcast, shoot them a link to my website, and I'll give you all that information. That's the best thing you can
Mm-hmm.
do for us. I'm trying to do this without asking for money, but people are telling me that it's impossible. So if we do ask for money, just know that it's not going to be wasted. It's almost asinine to me to think that people are asking for money when a time where inflation is high. But lawn signs cost
Mm-hmm.
money. Lawn signs cost money. Literature costs money. Door signs or little door hangers cost money. All this stuff.
Yeah.
We're just doing for the campaign, and we're trying to self fund it as much as possible. We've gotten a little bit of help here and there. So, um, I don't know if the person who's donated to me wants me to mention his name or not, but he has helped me a little bit. A local vet here who's been amazing and just believes in the message, and he's
That's
nothing.
awesome.
Yeah, just somebody who really thought, hey, I think you could do something. So he helped me out a little bit, but it's a crazy machine that you're trying to fight. This is a David versus Goliath story, and if I can pull off the
Yeah.
miracle of becoming a representative in this district with pennies, then
Mm-hmm.
at least you'll know that I'm able to stand by my word and not accept money and not become
Mm-hmm.
involved with people or become involved with PACs or become involved with organizations that give you money in order for you to worry about your next reelection. But that's what this will be.
Mm-hmm.
It will be a legitimate miracle if I'm able to do this, because, and I'm not saying that I'm not confident in my chances, but
Yeah.
it's a force so strong that we're fighting, that it's, and Vivek talks about this too, and he's not lying when you hear him talk about it. I can only
Yeah.
imagine at the presidential level, it's got to be insane.
Dude.
So
Yeah.
to help us
Sometimes
out.
I worry
Go ahead.
about his safety probably more than he does. Just anybody that talks that avidly against the them, right? It's like
Yeah.
you got to be opening yourself up for a bunch of shit. So
Yeah, I worry about my safety too. I'm not gonna lie. I've already
yeah,
been told by a couple people, hey, be
damn,
careful,
bro.
be careful. Be your message is strong. So it doesn't mean I can't say
Well,
it though.
you're
It doesn't mean I don't want to say it. It
yeah,
doesn't mean it doesn't need to be said. Um, what was that guy, Juicy Schmoulier? What did he say? What did he say
yeah,
whenever he was?
juicy familiar.
Yeah, yeah. He's like, I did not kill myself. And like, yeah, that's
Right.
pretty much how I feel.
Yeah,
It's
I'm happy.
yeah, I'm
I don't
happy. I
have
love my
yeah,
life.
exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
because who knows what these people are capable of. But
No doubt.
man, yeah. Thank you for giving me the platform. And like I said,
Yeah.
best way you can help us is social media. I want to show this establishment that it doesn't take what you think it takes. You have
Mhm.
millions of dollars. The incumbent has access to millions of dollars, a lot of money.
Mhm.
One of my other opponents here in the district has. They're both my. So there's me, the incumbent, and then two other two other people that are running for rep here. They're local businessmen. I mean, they're nice guys too, but they're also wealthy businessmen. So I think that
Mhm.
that removes a little bit of the level of representation from us. And they might have started out as one of us, but
Mhm.
they are no longer. And there's nothing wrong with making money.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with making something of yourself and making those millions, but it just in this point in time, I think it's more beneficial for the people to see someone do it from nothing, do it from a stance of not having wealth, and that'll benefit everybody across the board. You know what I mean? Not just
Mhm.
seeing, oh well, of course another rich guy got it. That's kind of the status
Right.
quo. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
yeah.
Exactly. Dude, thank you so much for coming on here. It's nice to actually have a conversation with you, get to meet you, see what you stand for. I gotta say, man, knowing you a lot better now, I'm super proud to know there's people out there, vets that are trying to make a difference for Americans, and obviously veterans were very interested in our country and bettering our country in general. That's a pretty well understood thing about veterans, but you're taking another step in representing Americans, in your district and around the country, trying to leave it better than you found it, so to speak. So, hats off to you. I appreciate you coming on here and talking about it.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much, and thanks for supporting the company as well. That means a lot.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right.
All right, well, concludes another episode of I Came with Fire podcast. If you guys were wondering, Zach
Oh,
had some prior obligations because of Uncle Sam, and so he wasn't able to join us tonight. But don't worry, he's still around. He didn't disappear. And yeah, what's up, man? You got
one
something
more
else?
thing. Yeah, March 5th is the primary. Sorry, I'm new at this political
March
thing.
5th.
So March 5th is the
No, you're
primary here
good.
in Texas. So that's the date that people need to get out to vote, need to register at least 30 days prior. So for those of you who don't
Mm,
know how it works, and I hope to not insult anybody's intelligence, right now there are 4 Republicans that are raising their hands and saying, hey, me, pick me, I'm the best Republican. March 5th is when that Republican will get decided, right? And the same thing is happening
mm-hmm,
on the Democratic side. I think they have 1 or 2. Those 2
mm,
people, right, the Democrat and the Republican who are chosen, will be the names on the ballot in the general election with the presidential election. So again, not to
right.
insult anybody's intelligence, but just in case you hear March 5th and you're like, what the hell does that mean? That's what that is. It's the primary race. So March 5th,
Yep.
everybody, 27th district. You'll see the list. You'll see the list of counties. Anybody that might be interested in the message, just fan the flame and see if we can get this going.
Absolutely. Well, good luck to you, Luis.
Hey man, thank you.